As a stereotypical loser nerd in high school, I never went to any parties or blew up sewer grates with firecrackers or whatever the fuck it is teenagers do these days. Instead, I huddled in the basement all day, every day, doing absolutely nothing productive. As such, I have quite the body count of manga, but never have I been more invested in a romance than I am right now with this. Now, let's get this out of the way before it becomes a problem later on. Is the title clickbait? Technically no, but also kinda yes. In all honesty, I can't really justify calling Houkago Kitaku Biyori my favorite romance yet, since there's really not that much actual romance. If you read the title or description or wherever I put it, you know that this manga currently has only like 50 chapters. If you're an unseasoned manga reader, that may sound like a lot, but trust me, it's really not. The story is very much a slow burn, possibly due to the fact that at least 50% of the two main characters are slow themselves. That means the romance doesn't rush itself, which is nice. Instead, it actually allows itself to develop naturally, with the main two bonding first as friends and bridging off from there. I know that seems relatively self-explanatory as a plot device, but you'd be shocked how many romance manga skip this step entirely in lieu of pointless antics masquerading as comedy. The romance here feels earned by virtue of the characters feeling cohesive, both as individuals but also as a pair. Speaking of which, Shun is an awesome protagonist. He's really not flashy by any means, far from it. In fact, more often than not, he kinda just feels like some guy. And while that may initially sound like an issue, it's actually one of the best compliments I could offer here. Shun feels like someone I could genuinely meet in real life. Like, I could bump into him in a Walmart superstore and it wouldn't feel that out of the ordinary. I mean, other than the fact that I'm in a Walmart in that scenario, which, nah, I'm good. Shun is a freshman at Wasabiyama High School. His one other defining feature is that he's tall, at least by Japan standards. Think slightly taller than average Oompa Loompa. Upon taking approximately 2 steps, he gets ambushed by a bunch of sports clubs that all immediately begin dick riding him in order to cash in on his height. Problem is, he has hurt his leg in some vague, undefined injury and can't play sports anymore. Personally, I feel like if you can walk, you can run, and if you can run, you can play sports.
It's out of the park!
I mean, it doesn't look like he's got a torn ACL or dislocated knee or anything, but I'm also not a sports baller or a doctor for that matter, so I wouldn't know, and also who fucking cares. The clubs all fuck off in shame, and he offhandedly mentions that he's really goddamn tired and just wants to go home, which, you know what? Going home is reliably the best part of the day. I get it. You know who else gets it? This goblin child. Enter Naoki Sato. By the way, they both have the last name Sato. It's like having Smith as a surname, if I'm not mistaken, or Nguyen in Vietnam. I'm pretty sure there's a Cosmo quote about how common Satos are too, but I'm not rewatching the entirety of Konosuba to find it. Just trust me on this one. Naoki is the president of the unofficial Hypergo Home Club, and she's affectionately referred to as Chokki-chan, which is a Japanese pun about going home, I think. She is functionally Shun's antithesis, unathletic, overbearing, and short. At least by Japan standards. Think, decently sized garden gnome. As it turns out, Chokki is impossible to win a conversation against, simply because she does not comprehend anything. And I suppose now is as good a time as any to inform you all that Chokki-chan is one of the best manga characters. Yes, that is the end of the sentence. No buts, no stipulations, she just is. Thanks to the internet, fictional autism is a concept that has become sanded into oblivion. Basically any character who acts mildly quirky once is branded as such. So I need you all to understand that when I say Chokki is autistic as all fuck, I mean that. She's constantly going on about romance, not as an intimacy, but as a metaphorical concept. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry, Shun doesn't get it either. She's basically an overgrown 6-year-old that is never not adorable. Needless to say, Shun joins the club, maybe kinda probably against his will. As I've already mentioned a few times now, this series is a romance, so bust out your Erlenmeyer flasks, micropipettes, and dimethylgloxime. Let's talk Chokki-chan is a fucking idiot. Let's just be absolutely clear about that. She's a dunce, an absolute buffoon, but a controlled one. There are a lot of loose cannon anime characters out there who do crazy shit because why not do crazy shit? In contrast, Chokki has a very clear agenda in everything she does. There's always a reason, and that reason is usually the pursuit of romance, aka a workable justification for her insatiable curiosity. Chokki knows what she wants, absolutely everything, and also absolutely nothing. Our broody boy Shun over here is the opposite. Ever since losing soccer, he's been stuck in limbo, unsure what exactly he's supposed to do. It's through the Hypergo Home Club that Chokki teaches him about appreciating the small things in life, like stick swords or carrier pigeons. Do you see what I was talking about when I brought up the autism? Shun is someone who feels like he needs a purpose, and Chokki is confident she doesn't. She just goes with the flow. The same flow Shun has been fighting this whole life. It really is a match made in heaven. The more you think about their characters, the more they just make sense. Not to bring boring-ass literary principles into things, but the main driving factor in fiction is always conflict. Maximum conflict is always a positive, and the more you look at it, the more opposite Shun and Chokki appear. Tall, short, subdued, perky. Siblings, only child, no pets, cat. Holy shit, there's no way that's a cat. That's a fucking demon, man. Why the hell is it so big? Oh, right, Japanese standards. Never mind, nothing to see here. The other thing I've neglected to highlight here is the actual club itself. The Hyperglow Home Club as a setting is basically the physical embodiment of Chokki's entire character. There's never a plan or a schedule, they just do whatever happens. Unless it's a Wednesday. Wednesdays are reserved for battling the immortal crawl of inflation. Yes, the club is obviously just a plot device that provides a convenient reason for the dorks to remain in constant contact, but even then, it's a very good example of how to do that right. Also, before I forget, because I totally will, let's briefly talk about side characters. To be honest, this is probably the weakest aspect of this manga, but weak side characters is a good glaring issue for a romance to have, since, frankly, who cares? After all, I'm here for the couple, not this guy. And that's not to say this guy is bad, I have nothing against Houkago, but he's pretty clearly just a vehicle for developing interesting events. Same goes with this chick, although in fairness, she's still a relatively new character. Shun's older siblings have very limited screen time, but they're both awesome. Again, the side characters aren't super relevant, they just kinda do what they do, and that's enough. Being a slice-of-life romance series, there really isn't anything particularly noteworthy that happens in most chapters, with 2 major exceptions, but we'll get there. More than anything, the manga just feels like an exercise in relaxation. It's not the kind of thing you read when you crave drama or violence. The more I think about it, the more I realize it strikes a similar chord to Non-Non Biyori, probably because they both have Biyori in the title. Coincidence? Well, yeah, probably. The difference is that Houkago Kitaku Biyori centers on a romance rather than a platonic dynamic like with the 4 main characters in Non-Non Biyori. Also like Non-Non Biyori, it's actually funny. Normally, the words comedy and anime in the same sentence trigger my fight or flight instinct, because, let's be real here, it's not traditionally the most successful combination. Houkago Kitaku Biyori is a rom-com, although, again, it's really a slice of life more than anything, meaning the humor needs to be at least passable. And as it turns out, when you stop conflating jiggly cow titties with comedy and start writing actual jokes, the product ends up being far more entertaining. Wow, who could have foreseen that? Shun's consistently dry delivery towards Chokki's idiocy is pretty much always entertaining, and some of these jokes are just so goddamn relatable, they force me to do some serious soul-searching. So, the characters are great, the story is simple, but effective, and the comedy is on point. That's great and all, but does any of that really justify me calling this the best romance manga of all time? Well, no, actually, not really, but that's because none of those things are what Houkago Kitaku Biyori does best. This manga truly shines in its verisimilitude. For those of you who don't know, that's defined as something's ability to feel real, or truthful. Most manga is obviously fiction, but remember, a defining law of creative writing is that nothing you create has to be true. It just has to be believable. Basically, does the plot seem like it could happen within the context of the setting? And this is where Houkago Kitaku Biyori ascends to godhood. Every single interaction, every facial expression, every plot point, every story progression all feels so goddamn natural and anti-anime it's almost unnerving. Take this scene in chapter 12. Shun goes to tie Chokki's shoe, but loses track of how because he's facing it from the other side. Relatable. So he moves over and sits right next to her to finish it. As they both look up, they realize their faces are uncomfortably close, only to then ignore that fact, finish the shoe tying, and then just move on. In any other manga ever, the moment they make eye contact here, they'd blush, hurriedly back up, probably fall off the curb, and then stutter obnoxiously about how it was an accident, which nobody actually does in real life. This interaction feels authentic. Or how about this scene the chapter before, where Chokki's short ass can't see the fireworks over the wall, so Shun just picks her up. And it's not awkward because he's just being nice. Rather than freaking out, she just starts feeding him as payment for his services, which is totally something that I would do with my friends. Do you see how this manga being normal is a compliment? Approved. And these moments are absolutely everywhere. They're what the overarching relationship between Shun and Chokki are built on. These characters don't act like characters, they act like people. That's something that's shockingly difficult to achieve. On a base level, this manga is good because it feels so genuine, and that in turn makes the romance feel all the more desirable. And aside from just generally feeling more realistic, this era of normalcy also benefits the slow burn style of relationship this manga presents. Because Shun and Chokki respond so realistically to these situations, it's far more noticeable and exciting when they finally do start taking notice of each other, which actually does happen despite Chokki being denser than a bag of bricks. Seriously, in chapter 25, Shun says this. Chokki's response: fucking neutron star isekai protagonist levels of density here. However, where most romance manga would simply go in circles with this misunderstanding, Chokki actually ends up taking the hit not one chapter later, and boy does it feel earned. Remember earlier in the video when I mentioned 2 specific important plot developments? Well, here's the first, the goat chapter. Oh, and by the way, that's not like a slang thing or anything, there's just actual goats. This chapter is the turning point for Shun, where he finally becomes comfortable enough around Chokki to really put his emotions out on the table. As they sit by the river, Shun breaks down after finally accepting that his passion of soccer might be off the table for good due to his injury. And this panel portrays that perfectly and genuinely hurts me every time I see it. Seeking comfort, he hugs Chokki, and she says nothing and simply returns the hug. This is officially where his feelings for her start shifting, and from this point on, the scenarios only get more and more adorable. The Chapter 22 pocket scene, for instance, is absolutely heart-melting, but even that is nothing compared to Chokki's turning point, Chapter 26. Describing it really doesn't do it justice, in all honesty. Basically, Shun busts out the accidental Riz full force, and my dude, if she's making that kind of face, it's over. You've already won. Through all the shitty rom-coms I've read, which is a lot because, you know, talking to real girls is scary, I have never found myself rooting for a couple more than I have with these two thunderheads. I eagerly anticipate at least 200 more chapters. Oh, and by the way, for any of you losers out there who don't read manga for whatever reason, this sucker's also getting an anime adaptation. At some point. We don't actually know when yet, but rest assured it is happening, and as soon as we get more information on when, I will put all that crap in the description of this video. In the meantime though, why not just try out the manga? After all, it is the best Japanese romance series of all time. No, I'm not budging on that. This manga is amazing, and if your opinion is anything else, fuck you. At this point, you all have two options. Either go read it right now, or bookmark the anime, or I will sell your spleen on the black market at some point within the next 2 weeks.